What happens when a man wins $10 million and decides his loyal wife is no longer part of his future? He throws her out, but she's not going down without a twist. In this mind-blowing story of betrayal, revenge, and poetic justice, watch how one woman turns heartbreak into the ultimate power move. Get ready for a tale filled with drama, surprise, and a dose of satisfying karma. I still remember the sound. That soft, crisp rustle of a lottery ticket being unfolded. It wasn't much, just paper and ink, but the way Elias held it, you would have thought he was holding the key to another dimension. His eyes were wide with disbelief and awe, his hands trembling slightly as he read and reread the numbers. 10 million, Lila. Million. Dollars, he said again, his voice hoarse with excitement, like he needed to say it out loud to believe it himself. He was standing in our tiny kitchen, the one with the leaky faucet and peeling linoleum. Morning sunlight streamed in through the window, casting golden patches on the table where last night's dishes still sat. I stood there barefoot in an old t-shirt, a chipped coffee mug in one hand, staring at him like he'd just spoken another language. "Are you sure?" I asked, cautiously stepping forward. I glanced down at the ticket, half expecting the numbers to rearrange themselves like a cruel trick. But there they were, 5 perfect matches and the bonus ball. A miracle printed in neat black ink. "We're rich, baby," he laughed, wrapping his arms around me and lifting me off the ground in a whirl of joy. I let out a startled squeal, caught up in the whirlwind. For a few seconds I let myself believe it. Let myself imagine a life without bills piling up, without dodging landlords or choosing between car repairs and groceries. But even as we celebrated in that little kitchen, a quiet part of me felt something shift. Elias had always been the dreamer between us. He had grand ideas and bold plans that never quite stuck. Real estate schemes, day trading, a gourmet popcorn truck. I'd always been the steady one, making sure the lights stayed on, the rent got paid, and the dreams had a soft place to land when they fell apart. Still, I loved him. God, did I love him. I loved the way he saw beauty in broken things, the way he'd hum old soul songs while doing the dishes, the way he'd talk about our future like it was a story already written. We were a team, or so I thought. As the day wore on, the phone calls started. Elias calling his brother, his college friends, even people he hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone had something to say, advice to give, opportunities to offer. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, there was a new glint in Elias's eye. One I couldn't quite place then but would come to know well. Entitlement. He talked fast that night, ideas spilling from him like champagne. Vacation homes, sports cars, private chefs. I laughed at first, thinking it was all just fantasy, a way to blow off steam after years of stress. But as the days passed, I realized something unsettling. Elias wasn't fantasizing. He was planning. And for the first time in our relationship, those plans didn't include me. That night, lying beside him in bed while he scrolled through listings for luxury properties, I stared at the ceiling and felt an invisible wall start to rise between us. He was already somewhere else, a world apart, and I was still there in Eastbridge, feet on the ground, heart in my hands. The ticket didn't just change our bank account. It rewrote the very story of us. And I was beginning to fear that in this new chapter of his life, I'd been written out. 3 weeks. That's all it took. 21 days after Elias scratched his way into fortune, everything about our life, the life we had built together, was packed up, discarded, or rewritten without me in it. He didn't just drift away. He vanished like a magician pulling off a disappearing act. One day we were sharing coffee in chipped mugs, the next, he was cruising through Crestmore Hills in a brand new black convertible, sunglasses on, smile wide, and a new woman in the passenger seat. Her name was Tatiana. I saw her for the first time on social media, her arm draped over his shoulder like she owned him, like she'd always been there, waiting in the wings. She had sharp features, sharper heels, and that air of effortless confidence I used to fake my way through in job interviews. She looked like money, the kind of money that never had to worry about where the next rent check was coming from. And Elias, he looked like a man who had been reborn. Expensive jacket, perfect teeth, sipping champagne by a rooftop pool. It was like someone had taken the man I loved and airbrushed out everything real about him. No trace of Eastbridge. No trace of me. When he finally called, after ignoring a dozen texts, emails, and the last voicemail where my voice cracked mid-sentence, he didn't even sound like himself. The warmth was gone, replaced with this calculated, distant tone, like I was a piece of furniture he'd left behind and now had to arrange to have picked up. "Lila," he said, like my name tasted foreign in his mouth. "You were great for the old me. You really were. But things are different now. I've outgrown that life. I've outgrown you." Grown. Like I was a pair of shoes he'd worn until they no longer fit his new lifestyle. Like I was the training wheels on the bike he no longer needed. There wasn't even a hint of apology in his voice. No remorse. No acknowledgement of the years I'd spent holding up our world when his ideas collapsed. Just a cold exit from a story I thought we were writing together. That was the last time I heard Elias speak without a lawyer between us. I didn't scream. I didn't cause a scene or smash his belongings like you see in movies. I didn't even cry in public. I just stood in the middle of our half-empty apartment, surrounded by silent memories, and stared at the closet where his side now hung empty. I went to work the next day, came home, cooked dinner for one, and slowly, silently, I began to document everything. Kept receipts, screenshots, conversations. I wrote down every transaction, every shift in his demeanor, every missed call that turned into a silence I didn't deserve. I wasn't planning revenge. I wasn't even sure what I was planning. All I knew was that something inside me had cracked open, and instead of falling apart, I was quietly building something. Record. Plan. A future without him. He thought I was the one being left behind. But what he didn't realize was, I had only just begun. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for when I walked into that cozy little office above the bakery on Main Street. The scent of warm cinnamon rolls floated up through the floorboards, a strange comfort during one of the most uncertain chapters of my life. Mrs. Garland greeted me like I hadn't just shown up carrying the invisible weight of a crumbling marriage. She'd been retired for years, but her mind was as sharp as ever, razor precise and deeply kind. The kind of woman who could recite tax code while kneading sourdough. "I had a feeling I'd see you sooner or later," she said gently, motioning for me to sit. We spent hours poring over paper trails and account summaries. Together, we untangled the financial knot Elias and I had tied over 7 years of shared rent, car payments, savings goals, and rainy day funds. Turns out, Elias hadn't just left me emotionally. He tried to slip out financially too, moving assets quietly and liquidating small investments without so much as a conversation. But Mrs. Garland helped me see things clearly. She highlighted patterns, flagged accounts in my name, and showed me where Elias had made mistakes. Not illegal ones, just selfish, sloppy ones. He never thought I'd look closely, but I was looking now. And in that quiet office, surrounded by folders, highlighters, and the gentle hum of a space heater, I found something even more valuable than financial clarity. Found me again. Tucked inside one of my old journals, buried under years of grocery lists and forgotten notes, I found the first sketch of an idea that used to make my heart race. Kindred Paper and Company. It wasn't just a business idea. It was my idea. A boutique stationery brand inspired by my love for handwritten letters, whimsical designs, and the kind of personal touch that seemed to be disappearing in a digital world. I had dreamed it up years ago while working at the little bookstore on Maple Lane. Back when I spent weekends curating handmade cards and sketching logos on the back of receipts. But life had gotten in the way. Elias had bigger dreams, more immediate ones, and mine were always the first to be shelved. I let it go, thinking there would be time for it later. Now, with the life I thought I wanted behind me, I realized later had finally come. Called old friends. Talented ones. People who still believed in me even after I had forgotten how to believe in myself. Mia, a graphic designer who once freelanced for indie brands in the city, offered to help with the logo. Caleb, a printmaker with a studio across town, gave me a discount on the first run of sample journals. Even my former bookstore manager donated leftover inventory to get me started. For weeks, my days were filled with mock-ups, mood boards, and product names. I designed gratitude journals with gilded edges, minimalist planners with soft textures, and greeting cards with delicate hand-drawn illustrations. There were late nights fueled by tea and playlists full of indie folk songs, and mornings where I doubted myself so deeply I couldn't get out of bed without reminding myself why I started. But slowly, beautifully, I began to build something from the rubble. Every decision, every detail, every sketch was a quiet rebellion, a reclaiming. I wasn't building this business to prove anything to Elias. I was building it to prove something to myself. For the first time in years, I wasn't reacting to someone else's life. I was creating my own. And piece by piece, with ink-stained fingers and a heart full of grit, I was designing the blueprint of my comeback. 2 years. That's how long it took for the shine of Elias's new life to crack and crumble. He had always been reckless with money, but now he had more of it to waste. First it was luxury watches and private jet rentals. Then came the shady investments, cryptocurrency whispers, failing tech startups, and one ridiculous attempt to create a wellness resort in the desert. He had no experience, just charisma and cash. And neither lasts forever when you're burning through millions without a plan. By the end of the second year, the lawsuits started rolling in. Former partners wanted their cuts. A contractor claimed he hadn't been paid. And Tatiana, his perfectly styled escape from reality, left the moment the champagne dried up and the attention turned sour. His empire collapsed in silence, far from the spotlight he once chased. And then one day, like a poetic whisper from fate itself, I saw the listing. Elegant Crestmore Hills estate. Price reduced. Immediate sale. The mansion. Our mansion. The one we once toured together before the lottery win, when it was nothing more than a dream. Elias had bought it without me, of course. Gutted it, furnished it in sterile white and gray, filled it with mirrored surfaces and cold luxury that felt more like a hotel than a home. Now it was on the market. I didn't hesitate. I placed a cash offer through a silent partner, a dear friend who had helped me grow Kindred Paper and Company into a flourishing business. The success I had quietly built behind the scenes was now powerful enough to buy back the very thing Elias had once used to erase me. The sale closed faster than I expected. And on a rainy Thursday morning, beneath a gray sky thick with memory, I stepped through those towering iron gates with a key that belonged to me. I stood in the foyer for a long time, taking it all in. The marble floor gleamed under my boots, and the empty silence echoed like a church. The house was beautiful, cold but beautiful. And yet, every corner felt haunted. Not by ghosts but by ego. So I did what I had done with my life. I rebuilt it. From the inside out. We brought in artists and muralists. Local craftsmen who turned bare walls into vibrant testaments of creativity. We stripped away the pretentious chandeliers and installed soft, golden lighting. We replaced the minimalist furniture with handmade pieces from community artisans. We opened the doors, literally and figuratively, to writers' retreats, weekend art collectives, mindfulness circles, and pop-up workshops. What once was a monument to wealth became a sanctuary of expression. A living, breathing place where people could dream loudly, create boldly, and belong deeply. I renamed it too, the Grove House, because things that are nurtured with love grow. Months later, Elias showed up. I heard his voice outside before I saw him. He was talking to the new groundskeeper, trying to act like he still had some kind of right to be there. When I stepped outside, umbrella in hand, he froze. I thought maybe we could talk, he said. This place. It still means something to me. Sentimental value, you know. I didn't argue. I didn't rage. I simply handed him a laminated visitor flyer and nodded toward the large bronze sign at the front gate that now bore my name. This house doesn't belong to memories anymore, I said. It belongs to the future. He didn't fight it. He just stood there for a while, staring up at the mansion he'd lost, then turned around and walked away. Slowly, quietly, without another word. And as I watched him fade into the misty street, I felt no bitterness, no triumph. Just a strange, quiet peace. Because this wasn't just a house anymore. It was a symbol of survival, of transformation, of the life I had reclaimed, one brushstroke at a time. I never saw myself as the revenge type. Even when everything fell apart, when my husband walked away with a lottery ticket and a smile, when the house we once dreamed about became his playground, when my name was reduced to a memory, I never wanted to destroy him. This wasn't about payback. It was about power. The quiet, enduring kind of power that comes from rebuilding your life with bare hands and a beating heart. This wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. Kindred Paper and Company became more than I ever imagined. It wasn't just a boutique stationery brand. It became a home for stories. A place where people came not just to buy beautiful journals and cards, but to connect, to heal, and to belong. We launched community projects across the city. Free writing workshops in underfunded schools, pen pal programs between seniors and students, and art therapy journals for survivors of grief and trauma. We hosted seasonal art nights at the Grove House, filling the old halls with laughter, music, and messy, magical creativity. We even started a scholarship fund. One that helped young artists and writers from underserved communities take their first steps into the world with support, resources, and, most importantly, belief in their voice. Every day, I walked through rooms once cold and empty, now filled with soul. I watched strangers become collaborators, lost creatives find their rhythm again, and people who once felt invisible stand proudly in the light. And as I stood there, coffee in hand, surrounded by the buzz of purpose, I realized my heart had become richer than I ever dreamed. Not in money but in meaning. As for Elias, well, last I heard, he was renting a small apartment above a used car lot just outside of town. The marble floors were gone. The sports cars sold. The people who once circled him like moths had long flown off to chase new flames. He still blamed everyone but himself. Blamed the economy. Blamed bad luck. Blamed me. But never looked inward long enough to see the truth staring back. And honestly, I don't hate him. I don't even pity him anymore. What I feel is far simpler. Nothing. Because the man I once knew doesn't live in my mind or heart anymore. That space has been cleared for people and passions that do matter. I remember who I am now. I am Lila Dawes. Creator. Founder. Survivor. Not the woman who was left behind, but the woman who walked forward. And maybe, just maybe, the woman who found her greatest fortune not in dollars but in dignity. So if you're watching this and your world has cracked open, if someone walked away and left you in pieces, know this. You can rebuild. You can rise. You can turn your pain into something powerful. And if you want to follow more stories of transformation, strength, and second chances, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Because around here, every broken beginning has the potential for a beautiful ending.